Hello, my friends, and welcome to another devotional connection. When I was young, my mother used to always say something that I understood even then. You know, you get the old adage that if your friends jump off a cliff, you're going to jump off a cliff too. And I used to always think in my head, I was never dumb enough to say it, but I would think, well, yeah, mom, those are my friends. You know, we ride together, we die together. Um, and that was a really dumb thing. And I'm glad I didn't say it because I probably would be a different color now. As my mother would also say, keep talking, I'm going to knock the lips off your face, or I will slap the black off you. You know, things like that you hear. Um, and all in fun and games. But there was always a ring of truth to it. I look at the story of Lot and I realize that he needed a mother like mine because one of the things my mom would always tell me is, son, sometimes you just don't even need to be there. You would not be in trouble. Trouble would not find you if you weren't there to begin with. Be careful where you go. Be careful what you do. When things don't feel right, when things don't smell right, when things don't look right, get out of there. She would always pray for the spirit of discernment so you knew where you shouldn't go, what you shouldn't be doing, and sometimes the most important is when it's time to leave. So I read this story in Genesis, and it's Genesis chapter 13. It's a story of Abraham and Lot separating. And the Bible says that Abram, before his name changed, lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. The very next verse, verse 13, says, now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. Now that should have been a clue for Lot to get out of there. Now he's not in Sodom, he's near Sodom. But the very next chapter, chapter 14, my Bible titles it Abram Rescues Lot. Seems to be in the 14th year, some kings got together and went out and fought against Sodom and Gomorrah. And the Bible tells me that, where is it? In verse 11 and 12, it says, the four kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food and then went away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions since he was living in Sodom. Now we went from living outside of the city where everybody's dead set against God to now moving into the city where everybody's dead set against God. Sometimes you just don't even need to be there. Now Abram goes out and gathers his folks and convenes with God and rescues his nephew. And then the story in the Bible transfers to the story of Abraham and his wife and Ishmael and that whole bit. But then over in verse 19, it talks about Sodom and Gomorrah getting destroyed. And where do we find Lot again? Again, didn't learn his lesson the first time. Again, he's back in Sodom and Gomorrah. He's in the midst of it. He's in the thick of it. And the only reason he's getting rescued is because Abraham prayed for him. Abraham prayed for his nephew. And this is just utterly ridiculous. Because if this man was where he was supposed to be, he wouldn't be in this mess. If this man had not even gone there, not even allowed himself to be sucked in by the allure, had just stayed away from those who were dead set against God, an entire city of them, he wouldn't be in the mess he found himself in. Now, the good thing about growing up in a household that was Adventist and Baptist is that some days I went to church on both days. And the cool thing about that is it kept me out of trouble on the weekends. I didn't have time to be messing around with stuff I didn't need to be involved in. Sports kept me out of trouble. My parents had rules that no one else had that kept me out of trouble. My parents had expectations of our family that no one else had to do that kept me out of trouble. It was amazing to me that we'd wake up Sunday morning and do all of our chores and none of my friends had chores to do. It got to the point where some of them used to come to our house and do the chores with us because they knew they could get breakfast at our house. And we just had a different household than everybody else. But our household kept us out of trouble. It kept us where we were supposed to be. It was a rule in our house. You had to go through your Sabbath school lesson every week. I teach Sabbath school. Those rules seem to be gone by the wayside. And it's the adults too. Nobody reads it anymore. And we wonder why we find ourselves in the mess we're in. We wonder why we find ourselves places we don't need to be. We wonder why we find ourselves in trouble. We're letting our minds go to places they don't need to go. We're letting our bodies go to places they don't need to be. We're letting things inside of our spirit that doesn't need to be there. And our homes and our families are all messed up. Don't allow yourself to be in places you don't need to be. Don't allow things that don't need to be up here get there. Don't allow yourself to be pulled into mess. Because when God moves, there's nothing that can stand in his way. And Lot found himself in the middle of some mess. Lot found himself without a wife. Lot found himself in an incestual relationship with his daughters because Lot found himself in Sodom where he didn't need to be. I pray today that we spend our week focusing on God, focusing on everything that's good, everything that's just, everything that's holy, focusing on where we need to be. Talk to you soon.